and welcome to this webinar on mixed numbers and improper fractions. So firstly, when are mixed numbers and improper fractions introduced? In Year 4, children build on their knowledge of the whole to explore fractions greater than 1. Up until this point, children have focused on fractions within the whole. For example, 3/4, 1/2, 2/3, etc. A fraction greater than 1 can be written either as a mixed number or as an improper fraction. By the time children reach the end of Year 4, they should be familiar with both forms, ready for Upper Key Stage 2. So first we're going to take a look at mixed numbers. A mixed number is a number consisting of a whole number or integer and a proper fraction. For example, 2 and 1/5. In this example, we have 2 wholes and 1/5. 1/5 is a proper fraction as the numerator is smaller than the denominator. A reminder that in a fraction, the denominator tells us how many equal parts there are altogether, and the numerator tells us how many of those parts we have. These are first introduced using pictorial representations such as bar models, number lines and part-whole models. So if we take a little look at this example, we have 3 bars, each split into 5 equal pieces. The first 2 bars are fully shaded, so we have 2 wholes. In the final bar, 3 out of the 5 equal pieces are shaded, and we would write this as 3/5. So our mixed number is 2 and 3/5. At this stage, children will also practice representing mixed numbers on a number line. If we look at this example, the first thing we would draw children's attention to is the start and end point of our number line, which in this case is 3 and 4. So the difference in value between the start and the end of the number line is 1. Next, we look at the number of intervals between the start and end point, which in this example would be 9. Therefore, the number line is going up in ninths. Children can then fill in the missing intervals. For example, 3 and 1/9, 3 and 2/9, 3 and 3/9, and so on and so forth. Now we're going to take a look at improper fractions. Once children are confident with the idea that fractions can be greater than 1 and have experienced these as mixed numbers, they are introduced to improper fractions. An improper fraction is where the numerator is greater than or equal to the denominator. Sometimes these fractions are also referred to as being top-heavy. For example, we have the fraction 9/5. Here the numerator, which is 9, is larger than the denominator, which is 5. Once again, our denominator represents the number of equal parts altogether, and the numerator tells us how many of those parts we have. When children first start looking at improper fractions, they are reminded of previous learning, whereby if the numerator is equal to the denominator, the fraction is equal to 1 whole. So for example, here, 4/4 is the same as 1 whole. This knowledge is extended to exploring other integers or whole numbers using their knowledge of times tables. For example, 2 wholes would then be 8/4, and 3 wholes would be 12/4. Children will also look at how the whole can be made up of different parts. In this example, all 3 representations show 3 wholes. However, in each example, they are made up of a different number of parts. In the first example, the whole is split into 3 equal parts, and we have 9 in total, so the improper fraction is 9/3. In the second example, the whole is split into 5 equal parts and we have 15 in total. So the improper fraction is 15 fifths. And in the final example, the whole is split into 10 equal parts and we have 30 in total. So the improper fraction would be 30 tenths. Some children may also begin to notice the relationship between the numerator and the denominator. For example, 9 divided by 3 would equal 3, 15 divided by 5 is also 3, and 30 divided by 10 is 3. This concept will be explored later on. At this stage, children may also practice representing improper fractions on a number line. Here we could start by finding the difference between two of the marked intervals. For example, 0 and 1, which would of course be 1. There are 4 intervals in between, so the number line must be going up in quarters. By now, children should know that 1 whole would be the same as 4 quarters. Children can then continue adding on 1 quarter each time. For example, 5 quarters, 6 quarters, 7 quarters, and so on and so forth. Here you will also see the corresponding mixed numbers. This is important as it allows children to start exploring the relationship and equivalence between the two forms. Thank you for listening to this webinar. I hope you found it helpful. For more information on mixed numbers and improper fractions, please see the webinar on converting between the two forms.